Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to our session of debunking myths about government contracting. Uh, we are a Southeast PA Tech Government Procurement Center, and this is our readiness series. They're back to back for 5 days, Monday through Friday. Mr. Downing, if you wouldn't mind switching to that next slide. Appreciate that. Thank you. Just to introduce PTAC for those who are not familiar, we are a procurement technical assistance center, and our mission is to assist businesses in learning how to be successful selling to government agency, whether it's federal, state, or local, through seminars like this one or on one-on-one counseling. We are funded by a cooperative agreement with the Defense Logistics Agency, and all of our services are free of charge. There are more than 300 locations nationwide, and our Southeast PA office serves the following counties: Berks, Fox, Chester, Delaware, Lehigh, Montgomery, Northampton, and Philadelphia counties. If you're not in one of those counties, welcome to this session, but if you need your one-on-one counseling, feel free to reach out to your local PTAC office. My name is Natasha Borchanin. I'm the program manager and government marketing specialist. And I'd like to initiate the first in this week's series where we will discuss debunking myths about government contracting. Our guide through this session today is my colleague and a government marketing specialist, Bruce Downing. Bruce has over 30 years of experience in business and education and has served as an executive in a number of information technology companies. He utilizes his experience starting for businesses in the IT service sector, all of which obtain government contracts. We are lucky to have Bruce as a part of our team and help support small businesses with their government procurement journey. If you have any questions as you're listening to this presentation, please put your questions in a chat, and we will certainly try to address them all. It is my pleasure to introduce Bruce, and Bruce, the podium is yours from here on out.
Okay, thank you very much, Natasha.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we talk about these myths, and for those of you who are new to government contracting or just considering it, there are a lot of things out there that people will tell you. And what I want to do this morning is to kind of debunk those myths and give you a little bit of information about what you're going to be facing and what your business should look like to get started. In addition to that, many of the themes that we'll start with today, we will cover in some detail in the rest of this series. So again, the procurement series is to get started. If you're already doing government contracting, we certainly have other services for people who are further along, but we'll be emphasizing, those folks this morning just thinking about it or just new to government contracting. So the first myth: anyone can do business with the government. Well, basically, anybody can try to do business with the government, but what does it really take to get contracts? So first thing you need to look at is the viability of your business model. What products and services do you have that the government actually would want? Now, they get just about anything, but one of the problems for marketing anywhere, whether it's government or commercial, is understanding what the customer needs. So we really highly value customer-centric marketing, and we'll talk about that throughout this series. What that means is it's not enough to just throw out to somebody, let them know what you do and how you do it and all that sort of stuff, hoping somebody gets interested. The better approach that we, again, will be pushing through this series is to understand your customer, understand how they perceive what they need. And that's going to require research. So when we talk about your business model, you have to really make sure that you have at least the beginning of a business plan, and that you've thought a lot about how you would understand whether government agencies and what government agencies, whether it's federal, state, or local, have a perceived need for what you can do. And positioning, again, you have to have a strong marketing plan. So that, again, is going to include things like making sure that you can get through to the right decision makers. how do you let them know what you can do? What are the things that you can find that make you competitive? Those are all positioning issues that we will talk about throughout our assistance to you, whether it's in this webinar series or one-on-one with a counselor. And then capacity, particularly those who are just starting. Government is large, and you need to be careful about taking on what you can, but not defaulting on a contract. One of the examples I had was a really nice woman, African American service disabled veteran woman who was providing a bakery. She had a bakery in her home with two industrial ovens, and she was making specialty breads or things like that, and particularly for diabetics. Well, the VA got in touch with her and wanted to give her a contract, but the contract would have involved having to have 2 trucks full delivered every day to 3 different VA hospitals. Well, as you can imagine, 2 ovens in your house isn't going to do it. So, and again, there are ways you can get around that, but you have to really understand the scope of what they're asking for and make sure you've got the capacity so you don't overcommit. Obviously, capacity also involves financing, which you need to be considering. Okay, second myth, you have to pay to be a government contractor. You don't. Now, when I say you don't have to pay, you don't have to pay to get registered. You don't have to pay for any of our services. The only place you will see an issue with paying to get government contracting is in some state governments. They have third parties that have the software that helps them do their procurement services. So in some cases, in order to get the full details of something to bid on and to go ahead and try to get that contract, you will have to pay a small fee to that third party. But we're not talking about a lot of money in any case. But you will have, once you start trying to register in what we call the system for award management that we will be taking you through in this series also, people will be getting in touch with you. They'll send you emails to the extent of saying, well, we can guarantee you a 5-year contract. All you got to do is pay us $18,000 in our program. I mean, that's not unusual. Or maybe the cheaper ones down around 10,000. But, don't pay for those because you lose control, number one, of what you're doing, and you turn it over to them. And they're not guaranteeing you any money because there are contracts people could get that don't have automatic any pay. They're just, a fishing license or a hunting license, if you will, but no guarantee of any money. So again, if you hook up with one of our counselors, anybody comes along and says, hey, here's something that will help you, but you got to pay this or that, talk to your counselor first. Never pay to get anything done, no matter, until you actually see if it has value beyond what we might provide to you. All right, myth number 3, registering as a vendor guarantees contract awards. Well, that's not true. Because what you're going to have to step up to is you should have some relevant past performance. Now, if you're brand new business, in our discussions of strategies, we could talk about things like subcontracting to people who already have contracts. So there is a way of getting involved if you don't have any past performance. But what the government's going to be looking for is evidence that you, as a legal entity, as a company, not you personally, but your company has done work successfully that is close to the kind of work they want you to do, or delivering goods. So they have a strong bias in favor of making sure that they're not doing business with people who've never had a contract. Now, contracting officers, they are the buyers. They are really risk aversive. They really want you to have this past performance to make sure that they don't put their job in jeopardy by giving a contract to somebody who's not going to be able to do it. So past performance is very important. Your marketing and pitching. How do you go directly to agencies? You want to, there are ways that we can teach you about to get in touch with people in agencies, and there are small business offices that help you within each agency. There are also matchmakers, and particularly in today's virtual world, a lot of these matchmakers and industry days are virtual. They're online. They're starting to go back to actually in-person meetings here. So again, you need to become aware of what these opportunities are so that you can get introduced to people who want to hear your pitch, want to hear what you do and why. Then again, once you're kind of positioned that way, you have to bid on solicitations to be considered for an award. Now, the word solicitation simply means something that the government would publish that says we want a response from vendors. So it could be a request for proposal, request for a quote, or request, just a simple request for information about, is there anybody out here that can do this or that kind of work? So you have to learn that bidding process. So, anybody can get a contract only if you do the work. Government contracting is immediately lucrative. It's not. Government actually, once you're up and running and doing a good job with it, they pay pretty well. A lot of people say don't do government contracting because they don't pay. Well, it's cast in law that they have to pay you within a certain amount of time, or they pay you a percentage. And it's really not a good idea to count on the money right away. We generally recommend that you need to be at least, somewhere around a year or so trying to get contracts before you're going to get any traction. But again, we can talk about strategies that you might be able to do a little better than that. And that's what our role is to help you be realistic about your possibility of getting some money. But you have to know what your costs are. Again, you have to have the capacity to do the work. So you can't depend upon the government going to be your salvation. And why I'm on that topic, we didn't put it up here as one of the key myths, but some people have heard from friends and others that because you're a small business or this or that, there are grants out there for you to get you started. There are not any business startup grants in the federal government space. So, that is that's a myth that some people have anyway. Okay, myth number 5, the government only awards the cheapest option. Well, there are two kinds of decisions, and the job of the contracting officer generally is to be able to find the best solution for their needs at, the lowest possible price, given other things that they need to consider. But there are many cases where an agency is looking for a cheapest option. And they will often say in the solicitation that, they will put their evaluation criteria in there. And sometimes they will say, we are looking for the cheapest, best value. And, so if you're in the distribution business and, you're distributing something like furniture and, government buys furniture all the time. But obviously you have to evaluate, can you actually compete with the large furniture manufacturers who have government contracting people all the time, and they can get the cheapest price? Now that's, sometimes you can be a subcontractor to them, or there are other reasons that you might be able to get some of that work. But again, it's always going to be very price sensitive in that case. Now, in other cases, the best value might take into consideration things like services and how well you do them and what your credentials are. So particularly in the area of requests for proposals, where the government is looking for people who can solve a problem that's maybe not a off-the-shelf item, but where there really needs to be some expertise to help them solve a problem. So in that case, their evaluation criteria are going to involve really three kinds of things. They're going to be looking at the technical solution you have, how good is the solution you offer to them, and how is that going to be competitive. Second is going to be the past performance of your work in that area before. And then third is going to be price. So they will, again, in their solicitations, they will tell you how they're going to value each of those three things. So, it's not always cheapest, but you have to know the differences to when that's going to win the business versus some other value added that you can emphasize to the government agency. Okay, the next one, only big businesses win contracts. Well, that's really not true, because under what's called the National Defense Authorization Act, and this NDAA in 1985 was a government law they put into progress that actually helped set up this PTAC network that we're part of. But every year, what they will do is they will come out with certain goals and characteristics for government contractors. And in 1922 here, giving credence to the fact that there were not enough businesses of certain kinds getting the work, they set up the goals, and these are dollar goals, not numbers of contracts, but the actual amount of money that agencies are spending. And the minimum to be given to prime contractors. Now, the prime contractor is the one directly responsible for the performance of the contract. And again, later on in our series, we'll talk about subcontracting, where you're not directly responsible to the government, but you can get some benefits of it. But what they say is that 25% of their dollars should go to a small business. And what constitutes a small business? Well, we'll discuss that when we talk about your registration in SAM and getting started. 15% to what the SBA, Small Business Administration, calls their 8A program. The 8A is also what they call small disadvantaged businesses. And so that is really minority-owned businesses. And they try to give 15% to those. So if I'm a government contractor and I have these goals and I give business to an 8A firm that's also a small business, I can count that money in both of these buckets. The 7% women-owned small businesses, again, a program of the SBA, and its sister program, economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses. So they're looking to do 7%. Now that was just a year ago, was only 5%. And 5% was for 8As. So they've upped those. Service disabled veteran-owned small businesses. Now, not veteran-owned small businesses, but only service disabled veterans have this goal, 4%. Now, there are a lot of agencies, though, that will have their own goals. These are the ones that the SBA will monitor. These are the minimums that they recommend for agencies. Now, 4% to hub zone, means historically underutilized business zone. That's a program where a company that is established in one of these hub zones and the employees, certain percentage of the employees live in a hub zone. Again, we can explain that program in more detail, and we can explain all of these in more detail. But again, the small business goals that they set, and the SBA monitors them carefully, mean that, if you are a small business and can do something, they might need you because of their goal sets. So they will have what they call set-aside contracts. In other words, they're set aside for small businesses or veterans or whatever. So this again is a program that we will explain in great detail, and how you register to qualify for any of these buckets here. We can go through that with you also. You don't need to understand the FAR. Well, what is the FAR? Well, the FAR is Federal Acquisition Regulations. These are the regulations that guide the contracting officers. Some people, when they enter into government contracting, think federal acquisition regulations are regulations for vendors. Well, vendors have to comply with them, but these are regulations under which the contracting officers have to practice their procurement. So again, these are the rules that they have to go by. And you're going to have to understand which ones are relevant to you. And there are some sort of umbrella regulations that everybody in government contracting has to understand. Again, it's all a lot of legalese, and it's difficult to understand. And if you were to actually print out all of the federal acquisition regulation laws, it'd probably be as tall as a 6-foot person. But again, we can help you. There are a lot of good resources for figuring out what these are. And they're always in solicitations. They say this regulation, that regulation. They'll give you the numbers of the regulations. So if you want to check them, you can. But basically, this is what you have to understand that they operate by. Now, that doesn't mean you have to become an expert at all of these. We just need to, when solicitations come out, figure out which ones are relevant to you to understand at the time. Okay, so those are the myths, and we've gone through this pretty quickly. As I said before, everything we sort of covered this morning and the types of things you have to get ready for, we will be talking in great detail about those through the rest of this series we're going to be doing. So every day this week at 10 a.m., there's another one of them. If you're not familiar with it, look them up on, there is under the PTAC Southeast PA org, you will see those registered. And so let's open it up for questions.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is just the beginning, like Bruce said, of our series. Just to remind everybody, if you have not seen it, it is the one for tomorrow is Intro to Government Contracting. On Wednesdays, how to do market research. On Thursdays, SAM.gov walkthrough, so registration with SAM.gov. And finally, on Friday, a beginner's guide to marketing to government. So I would like to open it up to anyone that has questions. Okay, we have a question one here from Karen. How do I start to find those who would utilize my transportation services?
Yes, well, probably what you need to do is to get hooked up with us and have a counselor. And there are resources such as there's a site called the Federal Procurement Data System, and that lists all contracts between government agencies and vendors. So that's historic data of what agencies are buying what you want to sell. And again, in our presentation tomorrow, we'll get in some depth as to how you might what you have to know about how they categorize that stuff. But yes, there are lots of resources we can provide to you to help you with that. And again, in this series, we'll go into some detail about that. Good question.
Deborah had a question if this deck will be shared. So just, yes, I can share this deck with all of you, and you can find a recording on our Southeast PA PTAC YouTube page, which will be downloaded at the end of the week at our final session and will be available for you starting next week. Anybody else have questions? That's a pretty quiet group this morning. It's Monday, I understand. Yeah. So yes, it's a quite the reason why we broke up this conversation of introductions to government contracting, because it's quite a cumbersome landscape. So we broke it out into these 5 sessions, and because there's a lot of information to digest. You might have done some search on your own already and didn't know quite where to begin. So that's why we started with the myths surrounding government contracting. So, but
Yeah, and I see a question here from Deborah Scott. Will someone be able to review an RFP? Yes, that's part of our services.
Yes.
Essentially, our preparation here with everybody is to get you procurement ready. That's what this series is all about, is to get you registered right, get you to understand how to do the research, get you procurement ready. Once you start seeing RFPs, you know, and they will be published generally on SAM or elsewhere. But once you see these RFPs, you know, your counselor can help you with them. And we have some counselors that, you know, are very, very experienced in answering to RFPs or RFQs, which is just a quote, not a full proposal. So yes, that's what our counselors do.
We have another question from Karen, if you finish, Bruce. If not,
yep, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. How do we also find about being a subcontractor?
Yes, well, that again, there are sources online that show you what are the subcontracting opportunities. But in addition to that, part of your marketing strategy is going to be to find out who are the prime contractors getting business in an area that you're interested in. And then there are ways to get in touch with those, particularly if it's a large business prime contractor. We will see later that they are actually required to have a subcontracting plan telling the government how they're going to identify and qualify subcontractors to help them do their contracts. So there's a whole strategy about you know, how you find subcontracting opportunities.
Okay. Anybody else have a? You're welcome. You're welcome, Karen. Thank you for asking that question for everyone's benefit. You're welcome to ask any questions that may benefit the group or your business in particular. If you would prefer to do that outside of this large group, please feel free to email me at this email listed right here, ptech@kutztown.edu. That email goes directly to me, and I'm happy to assign you with a counselor that's really good at that particular area of expertise. So if I have an answer, I'll be happy to give that as well. All right, we have another question from Deborah. There are a number of companies who say they can provide government bid opportunities, and which ones do?
Yes, that's a good question, Deborah, because there are a lot of people out there that claim a lot of things. We offer to our clients free of charge a system called Bid Match. And we'll talk about that in detail in subsequent sessions. But the Bid Match program goes out and looks at multiple federal and state databases and will send you bid opportunities every day. Now, what we do is we put together a search profile which involves key phrases of what you're looking to sell, along with some codes that we'll talk about. There's NAICS codes and PSC codes. We'll introduce those to you. But these other companies, some of them are okay, but you're going to be paying for them. So the thing that you have to do is get hooked up with one of our counselors, and they will put together the profile working with you. So you can't directly go into bid match and sign up for it unless you want to pay for it. But we offer it to you free of charge. We buy a yearly subscription and use it on behalf of all of our clients.
Mhm. So just to piggyback on what Bruce has said, yes, we have a bid match, but we also have steps to make your procurement ready. So once your procurement ready, we feel that that's the best time to assign a bid match. And so Deborah, we can we can set you up with a session and identify those keywords, phrases, and everything else, all the other information we may need. So feel free to email me. And we also encourage you, if you do sign up with BidMatch, if you are procurement ready, that you really use that resource. I know that you might be receiving a lot of emails in your inbox, but there's also a lot of useful information there. So it does require due diligence on your end to identify which of these opportunities that landed in your inbox is right for you.
Yeah, and a related piece of advice is that a lot of folks think that if they sign up for any of these services, even including BidMatch, that's going to send them bidding opportunities, that all they need to do is sit back and wait for these opportunities and go bid on them, and that's going to be successful. It's not. We can, certainly when we talk about your marketing strategy later in some detail, you will see that that's really not a very good strategy for a variety of reasons. We will go into those reasons. But again, just signing up for a service that's going to send you something that you go through and say, oh, well, I could do this and send in a quote. That's just not going to be successful marketing strategy.
And just in general, to piggyback on that, Bruce, is that's just the name of the game when you're doing government contracting. You go after as many appropriate opportunities for you and, find out what sticks, right? Especially in the initial stages where you're building your portfolio and past performance, as Bruce has mentioned previously. So while I understand that there, a lot of small businesses in particular are just busy producing that widget that they're making or providing service that they do, but there's a certain amount of effort that needs to be allocated to go after these government contracting opportunities.
And I might add one other thing. PTAC organization here in Pennsylvania is also associated at our universities with small business development centers. And if you're a fairly new business or you haven't really done a full job of developing a business plan, by signing up as a client, you also become a client of one of the small business development centers. And they have other counselors who can help you with general business issues. Our purpose is to focus on government as one of the market segments you might consider. But if you've got overall business planning needs, certainly take advantage of the free resources of the small business development centers. Again, they're federally funded and state funded programs with some very good counselors that can help you with your business issues in general.
Mm-hmm. And, things like creating a website, it can be as simple as that, but they're a great resource, like Bruce said. All right, one more question, a couple of questions that we have. All right, so will you review GSA and the process of getting ready for those opportunities? Bruce?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You want to establish those relationships. So, there's various ways to do that. And when we talk about your marketing strategy, we will be talking about the best ways to approach them. But as I said before, the best marketing plans anyway are all relationship development. Now we're getting pretty good at establishing relationships without being face to face in these days, but still there are processes and things like we take you through developing a marketing introduction to you, and that's called a capability statement. Also, how you register in the SAM system and other things gives you more presence in the market if you do it right. So when you talk about the legal steps to create potential relationships, that's both a business issue and related to government contracting. So yes, we can help you through that. It also, implies that what we always recommend is you need to understand in your business the supply chain. In other words, where do you fit in from, let's say, the manufacturer of something to, eventually getting to a government agency? Well, there may be opportunities in there for you. Certainly, shippers and things like that are part of that supply chain. So those are things that we could go through. And again, I keep saying that you talk to your counselor, but every business is a little bit different. And every business fits a little differently into the supply chain needs. The other thing you're going to need to do in your research is to, make sure that the government is the best target for what you sell. A good example of that was I had a client that has a brand new kind of concrete that, is blast hardened and all sorts of things, better for buildings. And we did the research, and what we found is that government agencies don't buy concrete. Well, that's sort of a duh, because, government contractors will have contracts for building buildings that they give to construction companies. And then the concrete has to be supplied by the builder. So for that particular company, finding out who the primary contractors are that do government buildings, do that kind of construction, that became their market target.
Okay, we have another question from Karen, and partially Irene, one of our counselors, has given you example of what a networking industry day looks like. But Karen's question is, in the past days, one could go into make a sales call to those that that would need our services. Are those days gone, that we have to go through the legal steps to create potential relationship with, say, shippers? Bruce, do you want to address that?
That's what I was just talking about. No,
Oh, okay, gotcha. So you were answering, yeah. Right. So so identifying who the audience is and utilizing more of what we call direct marketing approach.
Yep.
And so here, Irene has given you here an example of upcoming industry day. So.
Right. And I also see one in here that's tacked on there by Deborah about the GSA.
Right.
Yes, the GSA is one of those things that people will tell you that they can get you a contract where they take you through the GSA process for big bucks. We do it for free. In fact, when I was running my own IT businesses, I had GSA contracts. So, again, the first thing you have to ask is the GSA contract really for you? Will it provide the benefits that they brag that it will? So, doing a good bit of research before you take on that process, because it can be very lengthy and somewhat convoluted. But yes, we have great experience in the GSA process, and we would help you with that free of charge again.
Any other questions this morning from everyone or anyone? I really do appreciate everyone's time this morning. I see some of my clients, so feel free to reach out. And I do hope that you are sign up for additionals. You're welcome, Karen. Additional sessions, and we can continue this conversation to help you get procurement ready, or if you are already procurement ready, to identify what the next steps for your business might be. Thank you very much. And like I said, do check out our YouTube page for anything you feel like you might have missed from this session, and I will share the presentation with you, Deborah, and anyone else that might be interested. Okay. Have a great morning.